We are live. What up? Happy Friday. Got a cup of Joe. It's good. Switched up my blend this week and got, I can't even remember the name of it. It's like Aunt Marie's Cocoa or something like that. I don't know. It smells a little chocolatey, but it's coffee, but it's a little sweeter than I'm normally used to, but it's good. Good morning, everyone. Jeff, Chris, Robert, P Mobile. Morning. What up, Travis? Cass's Critters in the house. What's up? What is up? It's a good day. It's a good day. Good morning, Lori. Hope you guys are ready for a show that actually has a planned discussion and structure. First time in a while, it feels like. Got some questions sent in and some news and just other stuff, but I figure we can dive right into it. I think we've already got like 8 people in here, so that's better than me talking to myself. So, oh man, this is good. Good morning, Eric. Right on. Relaxing before work sounds a lot like what I'm doing here. As you guys know, Friday I work at the reptile shop in town, so. Woo. Got some caffeine on deck. Ready to go. One of these days I'm going to need to take a day off. Not from this, just in general, because I don't have a day off for the next couple. Well, I guess next week I have Saturday off. Next weekend is the Sacramento Reptile Show. Morning, Dennis. Good morning, Centralian Exotics. I have to sneeze. Woo! All right. We're awake now. Really clear. What's up? Who the hell is Harvey? So, first off, next weekend is Sacramento Reptile Show. And it's the first year it's not going to be in the downtown convention center. They're moving it to Cal Expo, which if you're not from Sacramento, there's this big sort of like series of like warehouses and venues and a soccer field and stadiums and little things like that. I will not be making Northwest Carpet Fest, unfortunately. Sorry, brain's still waking up. Yeah, SAC show's coming up, so I'm going to be going out there for Saturday, I think, because I typically work Sundays. So Travis is coming up, so he'll be there hanging out with the family, picking up another carpet from him. That'll be pretty sweet. A little bit of an experiment and study / just why not have another badass jungle? So looking forward to that. Hey, thanks for making it, Sean. Hey, Carly and Terry. Good morning. So yeah, next weekend, Brian Cusco's coming up. He wants to make the SAC show for at least a Saturday. So he's going to come crash here, and I'm sure we will imbibe and film, and who knows? You'll have to follow his channel to see what comes of that weekend. But it'll probably be a good time. So you can't make the Sacramento Reptile Show. Be sure to tune in to Brian Cusco's channel because I'm sure he'll put it in the vlog. So that's what's going on there. In other sort of, I guess, global herp news, although it probably isn't global yet, a couple gentlemen that I'm sure most of you all are familiar or have heard of in some fashion. Justin Smith of Palmetto Coast Exotics and Billy Hunt of Uwabami Reptiles. They're at it again. Content creating wizards? Sorry, that fell flat. Justin and Billy last year started a project, and it didn't go much further because Justin also does a lot of other things, and Billy does too. But they're revisiting it and trying to keep it going. They are starting a digital publication called the Herpeticulture Magazine. And it's not going to be a hard copy paper distribution type magazine that you get in your mail, sort of thing like that. They're creating digital content in that form. So both of these guys, they have their own lives, their families, their jobs, and on top of that, their own collections and content they put out for that stuff. They're also carving out some time in their day to do a digital publication. So stay tuned for the Herpeticulture Magazine. It's in the works right now. I've been talking with them for the last couple days, and they have asked me to be a contributing author for some content for that magazine. So, assuming I don't slack off, should be putting out some articles for them in the magazine, and we'll see where that takes us. So, morning, Ed. What's up, CMC Reptiles? So yeah, hopefully got a new digital reptile, well, herpeticulture. It's not just reptile today. That sort of loosely includes amphibians and invertebrates because we're not a good old boys club. We include everybody. We're all misfits of the same rug that everybody else walks on. All the high and mighty bird and mammal people. Just kidding. But yeah, look forward to that. They are set up with a Facebook page and an Instagram account for the Herpeticulture Magazine, so go give those a follow. It's got a big sort of macro shot of a chondro right in the logo, the icon, so you can't miss it. Definitely give that a follow on both of those platforms so you can stay tuned. But we're hoping to have the first issue of the mag drop early November, and hopefully keep it going forward consistently with regular, consistent content from here on out. There will be articles on species profiles, breeder highlights, relevant news in the hobby, new technology, new species produced, new species coming in, all the relevant stuff that you can think of and then some. Just try and keep bringing you content. So stay tuned for that. Yeah. So that's some reptile news. In other news, my 3 lowly little Madagascar giant hognose eggs are on day 57 right now. And one of them is so deflated it's hard to think that there's a snake in there. But I candled them a few weeks ago, and I definitely saw strong veins connecting to the shadow of a little baby snake in the bottom of those eggs. I know nothing about breeding and hatching colubrids, so here we go. It might work, it might not. But they tend to go anywhere between 60 and 80 days, so we're in that range. Because my incubator has more or less been turned off because it's been so warm. The temperatures have just been allowed to do whatever they're going to do because I can't keep it cool right now. They've been hitting as low as 80 and as high as 87. So you average it out somewhere in the mid or low 80s. We're probably looking at an incubation period between 60 and 70 days is what I'm expecting. But I am checking them twice a day. So we'll see what happens. See what happens. Who the hell is Harvey has a question, and before we jump into some of the other stuff that I was planning to talk about, we'll get on with that. What's your thoughts on bioactive setups for snakes? I'm planning on getting a larger vertical viv set up for my jungle carpet and want to get some nice plants, etc. in there. I say do it. I think you should do it. There are plenty of people who can give you coaching tips and advice on how to maintain the isopods in the bottom and which ones to use and which ones do best and how many and soil particulars and things like that. I'm not one of those people who knows all the specifics of species and soils, but I can tell you there's plenty of great products out there. Like ZooMed makes a Repti soil. Exoterra and ZooMed both have like little bark chips. You can get activated carbon and moss and make your own ABG mix, things like that. And then that stays nice and fluffy and doesn't compact down with excess moisture. So then you can have good root access and oxygen in there for plants. So you can do live plants. And if it's vertical, in theory, you're probably running your hot spot up top. So your animal's going to bask, waste is going to fall to the bottom. Your cleanup crew is going to do all that good stuff down on the bottom. So I think you should do it. I think it'd be awesome. With a jungle or any carpet for that matter, they don't produce waste on a weekly basis really, or not in any solid amount. So it's not like you're going to overload a cleanup crew. I should think that it would work just fine. So I say do it. Planted vivariums always look nice. At work, I just put together another poison dart frog tank that's all ABG mix, live plants, probably go bioactive on it, throw some springtails and stuff in there. And it's good for little stuff. With bigger animals, obviously, that produce more waste, you need a larger cleanup crew. So just keep that in mind. But I think it's cool. You get a lot of neat behaviors out of your animals. And it's, in theory, less work for the keeper as far as cleaning and maintenance goes. Now, obviously, you got to trim your plants, make sure they're not overgrowing or dying, make sure climate's good. But you got to do that anyway. So it should be pretty sweet. Yeah, ABG mix is great. If you like get some of that, like the ZooMed New Zealand sphagnum moss that comes in a brick, and you sit there and you like grind it up with your hands, mill it into smaller pieces. Get some like horticulture charcoal and smash it up into smaller pieces. Use like bark chips, coconut husk, peat moss, and mix it up in certain ratios. You can go online and get the Atlanta Botanical Gardens recipe, which is what ABG stands for, in case you didn't know that. And you can make up a bunch and keep a big bin on hand. So anytime you got to add more or make a new viv, there you go. It's pretty fun. It's pretty cool. Stock up on moss and all that stuff. Botanicals, hardwood, corkwood, barks. Leaf litter is really cool. Freeze some leaf litter for a couple weeks and chuck it in there. Always adds a nice little touch. It looks great. So, yeah, I would love to see a video of that if you put something up. So I was really excited because yesterday I got a message from one of the viewers who I've met through the channel here doing the live stream. Goes by the account name of Omerta Genetics. Check him out. He's usually in the chat. He usually pops in when he can. Always has good questions. This time I've been asking for y'all to send me questions ahead of time, so I'm not sitting here like, what are we talking about? I don't know. I'm just winging it as I go, which is usually what I do. And he had two questions. The first of which, well, let's see. What makes sense to go over first? Well, we're 15 minutes in and I haven't pulled out a snake, so I know where I'm starting. He asked, here, I'll pull it up. Could you show in detail how to properly pop, I hate the term, to sex, a 3-foot carpet? So first of all, grab a carpet. We'll go over that. Grab a 3-footer. 3-footer. 3-footer's probably like a yearling-ish. That 3-footer will make me bleed. Hold tight. Let's try this guy. He's usually a dude. We don't show him off much, so we'll give him some camera time. He's twitchy. I don't handle this guy enough. All right. Actually, probably a little more than 3. Gosh, you got big. When did that happen? Um, this is my Darwin male, and he is an adult. Part of the challenge in this question is when you go to sex snakes that are of this size, they usually have more muscle control, so it's harder to do, and they usually don't put up with it as much as a baby does. Babies are usually pretty tired and wear out easily and small, and so also when they bite you, it doesn't hurt as much. This guy doesn't really have a bad attitude. He's flighty, but he definitely has a limit. I have had him reach his limit and just kind of tell me like I'm done, and he goes to chomp me. Um, let's do this a little. So easy killer. I'm gonna let him kind of squirrel a bit. I don't handle him much, so I'm gonna let him kind of get his yayas out a little bit here. Um, so the question is, how do you properly sex or pop this animal? And he brings up he doesn't like the term popping because I think most of y'all when you hear that it kind of sounds like you mean pop them, like you pop them in the face, you punch them, or it just kind of sounds forceful and not sensitive to the fact that this is a live animal that deserves respect and care, right? So I mentioned I don't really like the term popping either. If you want to sound smart and impress your parents or your teachers or whomever, use the term manually everting because that's what you're doing. You're manually everting the reproductive organs. In this case, a male would show you hemipenes. A female would show you basically her vent, and you probably also see some scent glands on the side of the vent that look pretty different from hemipenes. But it's challenging on an animal this size, one, because they don't sit still. Two, when they bite you, it's not pleasant. And 3, they can actually resist and kind of clench up the sphincter down at the end and clench their muscles so that you can't evert their hemipenes. So one of the best things I like to talk about first is male hemipenes are rather long. So if the tail is this long, this is the tip, and here's the vent, the hemipenes are going to go to a certain point. And if you are trying to manually evert them, but you've sort of pinched the end of them, excuse me, and then you try and roll it, you're holding it in place and not letting it evert. So you might miss sex them because you didn't account for longer hemipenes. Because when you probe, females are shallow, males are deep. So that being said, probing will give you the most accurate results. But if you have a rather tolerant animal, say you're just picking up a subadult animal or a well-started animal from a breeder or something, and you just want to double check, probing will give you the best bet. And if you have a second person with you to help kind of gently hold them so they don't get like tied up in something or turn around and bite you, it makes life a little bit easier. That being said, a bite from these guys isn't the end of the world, but we like to avoid setting them up to get that upset and get us nailed, right? So manually everting or popping takes a lot of practice. You can hurt an animal doing it. Babies are easier because they don't have the muscle retaining, like they won't fight you as much, they won't put up with as much of a fight, but you're probably going to get bit, and most snakes don't like it. Start low, you roll. Ooh, sperm plugs. Oh, that's ding. There you go. So you can just sort of see that. He's actually being pretty nice. He's not peeing on me. He's showing me he's ready to breed too, which is good because he's got some work to do. So that is how you would do that. I would recommend practicing on a smaller animal first. Much easier, and you'll get the results quicker, and you'll get confidence. Part of manually everting is confidence in yourself, knowing that you're doing it right and knowing what to look for. There are some species where it's much more difficult than others. Ball pythons are super easy to pop, especially as babies. Carpets are a little more difficult because they're kind of narrow and slender. So I don't think Omerta Genetics is in here just yet, but I'm assuming he will catch this later. So I hope that was a good demonstration visually for you. And then we will segue into the second part of his question. And I guess it's kind of relevant having this guy out, and I'll explain why. The second part of his question: can you give an overview of what happens when or if you breed an albino Darwin to a jungle carpet? Will they even pair? I haven't seen one in my searches. Thanks. So, this brings up a couple questions, which is the crossbreeding of subspecies. It can happen, for sure. It's been done. They do it, no problem. Darwins tend to breed a little bit later than jungles, but if you cycle them in your system the same way and you're paying attention to your animals and seeing whether or not they're receptive, and you pair them plenty of times, odds are you will have success breeding any subspecies or species of carpet together if you keep trying, right? And they're ready to go and mature. It can be done. It's not like they're incompatible. You can create Darwin jungles. Now, Travis he's dying right now. Travis is what we would call a purist. Nothing wrong with either side of that fence, but many of us like to keep things distinct, just so there's no confusion, there's no, crossed random normals, shall we say, floating around afterwards, because most people will cross certain subspecies to attain a certain morph combination. It usually results in one or two animals in a clutch, and then the rest get wholesaled off or passed off, and information gets lost, and somebody's like, I think they said it was a jungle Darwin or something, and usually the jungle only gets passed on, and then you have a mutt floating around there being mislabeled and misrepresented, right? Causes this whole can of worms. So that's not the point. Albino jungles. So the albino gene comes from Darwins, at least in the United States. In Australia, they obviously have the albino Darwins, but recently there are some folks who have uncovered an albino coastal and are working on that. That has not really made it to the public out there, certainly not to the United States. So for the sake of this discussion, anything that I refer to as albino is going to have Darwin in it because that's where the albino gene originates. In jungles, you have zebras, you have selective breeding, you have banding, super zebras, but that's about it, right? So let's say, for argument's sake, you pair a jungle with an albino Darwin. What you will get are 50-50 crosses that are 50% jungle and 50% Darwin, and they will be 100% het albino. Albino being a simple recessive, that's what all of the offspring resulting will be. Now, they're not visuals, so what you will sort of see with just crossing a Darwin to a jungle is the black and yellow mixing with the brown and tans, and you'll basically get sort of middle of the road. Blacks will be more brown, the browns will be kind of dark, the yellows will be kind of tan and brown, and it's not a phenotype that's sought after, essentially. But if you take that a step further and say breed those offspring together, the resulting offspring will still be 50-50 Darwin jungles, but you will eventually statistically land on an albino. The reason why you don't see them is because not many people aim for just an albino jungle. You will see albino zebras, albino zebra jags, things like that. And so there are probably some animals that come out of that are albinos that have jungle blood in them. So typically what you will see are albinos. If they're not pure Darwin, they're labeled as mixed blood or, IJ crosses or whatever it ends up being. I don't know if I've seen an adult, for example, 50-50 albino jungle, but I would imagine it would look much like a Darwin albino, and the tones might not be as bright or crisp or whatever. That being said, why would somebody breed for just an albino jungle when you can get a great Darwin? The only answer to that would be if they wanted to make some different colored albinos, start their own line, or just make some pets. Whatever you want to do, right? But because there are morphs in both, you get people aiming for albino zebras, albino super zebras, albino zebra jags, caramel albino zebras. Like, all of these combinations can be put together, and eventually somebody will want one of those, and then you'll maybe in a clutch have some just straight albino jungle Darwin. So you will get those mixtures from time to time. It tends to be frowned upon by the purists because obviously they don't want to have these quote unquote mixed bloods or mutts floating around that might be mislabeled and misrepresented and injected into other people's projects unknowingly that they are mixed, because carpets can be really difficult to distinguish from one another, especially when you start adding albino and other morphs and things like that. So that being said, albino zebras look really cool. The first albino super zebra was produced either earlier this year or last year. So there is that, and we should, in theory, start seeing more of it as it comes about, because once somebody sort of breaks the ice on that, opens the floodgates, other people will start pursuing it, seeing that it's possible, seeing it, whether or not they like the results, and aiming for that as a project. So you should start seeing some of it. That being said, if you want a nice jungle, just stick with nice jungles. If you want a killer albino, the pure Darwins, in my opinion, have some of the crispest, best contrast, nice whites, amazing oranges, and it's really difficult to photograph, but my big female still has some of these very light highlighter pink and yellow, like lavenders in her head, even at her age. So get yourself a pure Darwin, get yourself a nice jungle, make sure you have those checked off. And then if you want to dip your toes into the morph and sort of mad scientist and go for it. Do what you want, man. Just make sure everything, if you sell babies, they're represented appropriately and communicated several times over to a potential buyer that these are not pure anything. They have this blood and this blood in them, so on and so forth. And just do your due diligence of being honest and representing animals accurately, and you're good to go. Ultimately, we're keeping snakes in boxes. Do what you want, right? So there's that. So this guy is it's just what we would call a wild type Darwin, 100% het albino, produced by Todd Dyer of Psychotic Exotics. I also have a pure Darwin visual albino female. Pardon me while I top off my coffee here. She's behind me, bloated like an overstuffed sausage, because as you know, this time of year, getting females ready for breeding, packing them full of food, and she's probably going to make an absolute mess of her cage in the next few days, pushing all that waste out. So this guy has been getting up to size. As you can see, he's rather small. He was much smaller. He's still a mouser. He'll eat chicks for me, but he's a mouser, so we'll see if that affects his fertility. But he's on the budget, and he doesn't take up a lot of room. He likes being in a small, confined space. He's like never out. He's pretty shy. This is, probably one of the first interactions with me he's had at this length for quite some time. So he's settled down and he's great. He's not defensive or anything, but he's not super familiar with this. So, yeah. You're welcome, Omerta Genetics. Hopefully that answered your question. So I'm gonna put this guy away, and maybe we'll get the big girl out and close out with her. You guys are all about to get a nice shot of my butt for a moment. Boy, get back here. Oh. So this girl likes to play in her dirt. So she has dirt on her face, unfortunately. But look at how fat she is. Bonk. Oh, Jesus. It's a big girl. Yee. I'm a face. Please don't poop on the computer. But yeah, she's full of food right now. You can see that. I'm slamming her full of food. She's a big girl. Stop moving. I want to see you. There you go. There's that contrast. Look at that. There's a sweetheart. So we'll see if I can get some production out of the Darwins this year. What up, Steven? Oh, don't slap things with your tail. Be polite. Yeah, you can see she's got a little dirt in her face. Well, if she ever settles down, you can see it. Yeah, a little bit of dirt. Playing around in the mud. I keep this girl on substrate. I don't know why. I just do. Oh, don't do that. That prehensile tail. Getting her into trouble. So, albino Darwin to close it out. Big, beautiful girl. See if she wants to breed this year. Been raising her up since she was a little babe. And I actually, when I purchased this animal from Todd at Psychotic, if you've ever seen Todd at a show, he always brings this one really insane albino male by the name of Cam, K-A-M, and sets him on the table so you can see what an albino Darwin looks like. And he's orange and white. He's just insane. So when I was telling Todd that I was going to buy an albino from him, I said I wanted something from Cam. Don't do that. This is her. She is an offspring of Cam. She looks a little more yellow and white. I guess it is kind of yellow, but to me it's like an orange. And then in the front, you got a lot of these pinks and yellows that you obviously can't see, but trust me. Yeah, she's got a little rat blood on her too. Whoops. So this girl is hopefully not going to take a crap on me right now. But see what we can do. See what we can do. Going to try and check Darwin's off the list this year, as well as Coastals finally. Got a lot of projects in the works, so. All right. So for those of you who popped in late, make sure you go look up the Herpetoculture magazine coming out. Hopefully the first issue will be released in the beginning of November on Facebook and Instagram. Justin Smith of Palmetto Coast Exotics and Billy Hunt of Uwabami Reptiles, and now myself are going to be working on bringing you guys some more really awesome digital content. So yeah, stay tuned. Don't forget to hit me up if you guys have any questions and topics you want me to hit on next week. Next week I've got a quick doctor's appointment in the morning, but it shouldn't interfere with the normal live stream time at 9:30 my time. So until I hear otherwise or something changes, we'll see you next week. And yeah, have a good one. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is a good group today. Good discussion, good questions, and it's nice having a game plan to run through. So, all right. I will catch y'all later. Adios.